Welcome to the first week of This Week in NIKKE. We're fresh off of the anniversary event and... Wait. What? What? Why does Celine have a new album? Why? Who is this? Hold on. It's December?! A mysterious figure reminisces about traveling the surface before the Rapture invasion, from the hot sandy beaches to the cold snowy mountains. This traveling is cut short when they are being forced underground into the Ark, hoping one day to see the surface again. Decades later, this dream has not come to pass, and a woman dressed in elegant, feathery fashion can only see the sights outside the AZX in disgust. Infinity Rail Squad begins the closing duties on board the AZX. Celine insists that Britt and Diesel go on ahead and she will finish the duties herself. They agree, and Celine goes through the cabins of the train one by one until she runs into Nora, who despite her best efforts, refuses to leave the train. Celine calls ACPU to try and remedy the situation. Polly and Celine enter the cabin to find Nora asleep, and upon waking her up, she begins to act completely different to how she had spoke earlier. Insistent but exhausted, Celine is convinced by Polly that it may just be old age catching up to Nora, and that it may just be for the best to let it go for today. Polly takes Nora home, and Celine wishes them well. The next day, to no one's surprise, Nora returns to the AZX and upon meeting with Celine, enlightens her to the charade she had pulled in order to avoid trouble with the police. Not wanting to drag Polly back, Celine decides to give in for tonight, informing Britt and Diesel tomorrow, but stands guard inside the cabin to make sure Nora doesn't get into trouble. Celine and Nora speak for a while before Celine dozes off. Diesel and Britt wake her up the next morning with Nora missing. Celine explains the night, and the two offer to stay the next night if something happens again. Just then, Ingrid calls Infinity Rail for an urgent meeting about train operations on the surface and to report immediately. Only needing two if necessary, Celine tells the others to go ahead, saying she'll deal with Nora again tonight. The two leave, saying they'll contact us to provide backup for Celine. Later, Celine gives us our orders, and we begin going car to car without issue. It's the last train of the day. Celine is able to get herself to make the last call before telling us about the old lady, who, again, is at the back of the train tonight. Nora teases Celine harshly about her announcement. Eventually, she realizes that we are a commander and Celine is a NIKKE. She asks if we would like her to leave, to which we politely reply that we do need to finish our runs for today, after which she heads off. Which irritates Celine. She warns us that she'll be there tomorrow. Britt and Diesel return the next day, and Celine reports no issues. The two need to leave again, but ensure that if discussions go well, Celine will be happy about the developments. The end of the day arrives, Celine does her last call, and heads to the back of the train. But to her surprise, Nora is not there today. Celine appears at our room in the outpost, letting us know that Nora didn't arrive and that she couldn't give her the blanket back that Nora had knitted. She's concerned that something may have happened for her to all of a sudden disappear, so we offer to help her find her. We first check the passenger logs to see if she showed up today. The day passes, but we do not find Nora. The next day, no luck. Celine suggests asking Polly since she took her home once, but Polly refuses to give us the citizen's private info just like that. Eventually she gives in and tells us she parted ways at an alley entrance after giving her a life alarm. We take that info and head to the alley. At the alleyway, we prod as to why Celine is so determined, after all that has happened, to find Nora, but she doesn't really have an answer to that herself. We overhear a security guard mention a stubborn old lady, and we learn it's Nora, who is perched at the edge of a rooftop railing. Seeing our obvious concern, she realizes that being on the edge of a rooftop might not give off the best impression and comes down, to Celine crying, worried sick about her, which confuses and flusters Nora. She awkwardly decides on a hug or not, before patting Celine on the head. Nora asks as to why we came up all of a sudden, before Celine explains her absence, the blanket, and her worry. But to her shock, the blanket was meant as a gift for Celine the entire time. Celine figures out that the reason she needed to look for Nora was that every time she saw her on the train, there was a look of sadness in her eyes, and she now saw that same look on Nora as she was on the edge of the roof. Nora teases Celine while saying she is smarter than she thought, before explaining her story. We learn that the voice at the beginning reminiscing was Nora all along. She envies and hates NIKKEs for being able to go to the surface she wants and still loves, longing to die on the surface rather than in the Ark. When becoming a NIKKE or a commander herself no longer became an option, she hoped that simply boarding the AZX would take her to where she needed to go towards the end of her life, but to no avail. She did not come to the roof to do something drastic, but to just sit and stare at the stars, even if fake. Nora says that she sees Celine as a friend and that they should meet again, on the train, 1 week from today. The day arrives, Celine has prepared a gift, but is worried Nora won't show up. We reassure her, and she delivers her last call with a new vigor and new message, for Nora and for the rest of the passengers, that AZX is meant to bring happiness and to carry that happiness with them. We then do our rounds to the train before entering the last car, where just like she promised, Nora was seated. The two catch up when it turns out they both had gifts planned for each other. Nora gives Celine hers, and Celine leaves to put it on. What we are told in the meantime is it is a uniform much more suited for Celine than her current one. Nora explains that she used to use her hands a lot back in her traveling days, and it was great to be back at it again. Celine returns, donning her new outfit, the centerpiece being the oversized puffy coat and belt. Celine now gives Nora her gift, a blank ticket, promising that if the AZX were ever to return to the surface for travel, with passengers aboard, the crew promises to take Nora anywhere she desires. All she has to do is write it down on the ticket. A few days later, Britt and Diesel return, wondering what happened with Nora, and loving Celine's new outfit. The two advise Celine to check the suggestion box, which is now filled with praise and kind words from happy passengers about Celine's time running the AZX, and especially her heartwarming announcements, to which Diesel hands the announcement duties off to her from now on. Celine asks what about and how the meetings went. The Ark has found a fully intact railway with tracks that go on for miles. Hoping to find resources on the surface, the AZX will now be heading to the surface, with the most important part being a small number of civilians can now safely travel that route. We jump to Nora, staring at the blank ticket. There is only one place she wishes to go back after all this time: Terminus. Okay, with that being caught up, let's get into the actual event. Welcome to the inaugural show of This Week in NIKKE. Someday in December, seemingly sometime in the future, we are in a hospital and Nora writes in a diary that she will be finally able to resume her traveling and finish writing her diary before her final stop. But she stops just as soon as she starts. Celine advises her to simply start from the beginning, when she first boarded the AZX for the surface. Nora is at the station wondering why Celine is so late. Celine then appears to inform Nora that the AZX will now be able to travel to the surface and her along with it, going over the details from the end of the blank ticket event. This fills Nora with an overwhelming sense of joy and happiness. Nora continues in her diary. 6 NIKKEs, along with Celine and ourselves, and Nora, would be heading to the surface. We greet Nora, Diesel, and Britt at the station, where they also introduce themselves to Nora. The 3 exchange pleasantries before Nora presents the 2 with their own gifts, and just like Celine, they are brand new outfits for the rest of the AZX crew. The other 4 NIKKEs coming with us are Julia, in charge of morale and entertainment, Nero, in charge of wildlife info and guidance, Signal, in charge of recon and security, and Mary, serving as the doctor on board. To Signal's surprise, only one passenger is accompanying us to the surface, and that's Nora. We see Diesel and Britt in their new outfits for the first time, and they thank Nora for the gifts, before finally heading on board. Leaving the press behind, Nora is just as surprised that she will be the only civilian on board, before learning that the other 2 declined the board. With that, the group officially introduces themselves, and the AZX begins towards the surface. Nora recounts the joy at watching the fake buildings and the fake skies disappearing behind them as they ascend the elevator and finally see the real sky for the first time in decades. Despite the world being fallen, Nora sees this as real as it gets. Not the sanitized world of the Ark, but the ups and downs of real life. A completely new world for her to explore. A day later, we arrive at the first station. 3 NIKKEs set out to secure the area. Nero reports an issue, but the surroundings are safe to disembark. The door opens and Nora is greeted by a deer. Nora recalls a deer park from before the fall, but notices the baby deer is injured, orphaned shortly before the door had opened. Despite now being on the surface, Nora wants to see the deer treated before traveling more outside. The deer is nursed back to health, but it is starving, and Nero offers Nora the opportunity to feed it. She tries, but just as she does, the deer refuses, knocking the bottle over. Nero thinks that the loss of its family was too much for it, as it is now waiting to die. Nora refuses to accept this, and firmly reprimands the deer for wanting to die so young, before drinking the entire bottle of milk herself in front of the baby deer. The deer now sticks to Nora like a mother for the time being, and she takes her first steps back out onto the surface, taking it all in. Her first adventure, finding the poor deer's family. They search surrounding buildings, but all the relics remind Nora of the past. The sun begins to set, but no luck finding the fawn's family. The next morning, everyone else on board the AZX joins the search. The day goes by just as fast as the day before, but nothing comes up. Nora then suggests one more building to potentially look for, as the day ends. This building proves to be the hiding spot, and Nora finds 2 deer carcasses. The fawn sniffs as Nora consoles the deer to try and go on living. Nora asks us and Celine to help bury the bodies. We agree, and ask Celine to help. Brid, Diesel, and the rest of the train help bury the deers in a nice, sunlit spot. Nero says the deer wants to eat, and Nora prays for the past deer. Nora thanks us all, and Nero advises us that we have done all that we can do, and if the deer has the will to survive, it will find a herd nearby and join them. Celine pulls us aside, revealing that it is not a deer that we buried, but deer dolls, wondering why Nora felt so genuine towards them despite this. Back on board the AZX, the crew begins heading towards the next stop when Nora sees a rapture for the first time since entering the Ark. Celine asks where Nora would like to go, and she recalls the 2 locations from the opening of Blank Ticket. And she decides that if there is one place she would wish to go, that would be home. Celine then promises to take her there. Nora requests that Julia play a song, and Diesel does her best to sing the lyrics. This is when the AZX encounters the Raptures for the first time on the trip. The defense is successful, as is the subsequent encounters on the way to the next stop, which Nora grows eventually used to. We arrive at the desert station and join Signal for recon. She notes something odd about the sand, but quickly brushes it off. Despite the arduous environment, Nora cannot get enough of it, and we walk forever until Nora eventually gets tired. She then sees someone in the distance wearing a cloak. Diesel thinks it's a mirage, and no one else sees this mystery person. The wind picks up as a sandstorm begins to stir. Diesel tells us to run back, but Nora runs towards the figure in the distance instead. We plead her to come back, and Nora recounts in her journal that she knew it was fake, but it reminded her of a person she knew from her past. When we see a flashback of Nora begin, and a young man named Lucien. Nora speaks of leaving to travel, and Lucien says he wants to go with her, but his parents would never allow it when this flashback ends. Back in the present, we gather around Nora, protecting her from the sandstorm as she passes out. Back on the AZX, the rest of the crew takes note of the sandstorm starting, and takes shelter inside, deciding on what to do, whether waiting for us to return, or to go out and search. Inside the sandstorm, we start to pass out when we hear the horn of the AZX arriving to rescue us, Brid offering her hand to assist us inside. We get inside, and the rest of the NIKKEs aid Nora back in as well. We escape, but Mary insists that all 4 of us need to head to the infirmary for a checkup. Diesel and Celine are fine, and we only inhale a small amount of sand, and are fine as well. But Nora, despite initial tests coming back fine, is still asleep, though Mary notes that she will monitor something in her brain scan that might be of note. The night arrives, the stars shine brightly in the sky, and we accompany Celine outside to watch the stars as we wait for Nora to wake up. When she does, Mary is there to meet her. Nora does not seem to remember, however, how she ended up in the hospital. Mary then warns us that upon further tests, Nora seems to be jumping in and out of amnesiatic states, but AZX does not have the equipment to diagnose her right. Celine recalls the deer dolls and the mirage incidents, and Mary worries that those may be related. Okay, with that being caught up, let's get into the actual event. Welcome to the inaugural show of This Week in NIKKE. Diesel's new alternate is a Burst 3 fire-coded attacker using a rocket launcher focused on sustained damage. Her Skill 1 and Skill 2 passives aim to increase both her own crit and sustained damage, as well as offering noise pollution immunity, stacking up to 3 times. And finally, the burst skill runs on a 40-second cooldown and increases enemy damage taken and deals nearly 200% of her final attack damage per second for 9 seconds. However, if in highlight status, the aforementioned noise pollution debuff will affect herself as well as giving the mute stack buff for the rest of the squad. This combination aims to increase sustained damage upon burst activation. Alongside Diesel, the yearly reruns will feature the Year 3 Ice Dragon Saga limited characters, Maiden Ice Rose, and Guillotine Winter Slayer, once again. All 3 NIKKEs will be obtainable until December 25th at 5 p.m. UTC 9. In the background, Nayuta, Liberalia, and Celine Frostticket have been added to the standard recruit pools and methods. On the costume side of things, we start out with a bang and a brand new gacha skin for Blanc named Fortune Express. Like most gacha skins, the new outfit includes new voice lines, a burst scene, standing pose, and home screen for the commanders. For the new event skin, the fan favorite Breddy will also be getting a new skin with the namesake Frosty Bite Pass, featuring a brand new winter-themed outfit with a very appropriate bread clip hair tie for the ARC's favorite taste tester. Last but not least, we have the return of last year's costumes with Vesti Archmage and Volume Beat the Gun, along with the Year 1 skin for Emma, Color Me Red. All 3 of these skins are offered through the rerun portion of the cash shop for $20 each. All costumes will be available through their respective methods until December 30th at 5 p.m. UTC 9. The biggest thing to probably come out of the update is that we finally have an official timeline for NIKKE. Now, this only includes the events that have direct or some relation to the primary story, like Dorothy being in the summer event and Wisdom Spring, rather than trying to map out every single aspect, but it provides us 2 main pieces of information. 1, that the standard events are canon, and 2, and this is probably the biggest part, that D-Waves and Gatekeeper are canon to the NIKKE universe, not one-offs for fanfare. We'll most likely have to wait a while, if ever, in order to find out the timeline of all the events, not directly connected to the main story, or things like Bond stories, things like that, but this is a great start for everyone who may have been confused or had any debates on the story so far. Last year's Christmas event, Ice Dragon Saga, was also added to the archives along with its minigame, Dragon Dungeon Run, being added to the arcade. The last thing before the main event that was made available with the update was the change over to the Winter Outpost for the rest of 2025. Last up for the first day of the event, we have everything that's available with the Terminus ticket main event. Rather than fighting the Demon Train, we instead get to enjoy a nice ride on the AZX for the next 3 weeks as our new playable map for the event. Like normal, we have Story 1 available for the first week, with Story 2 opening up later. And we also have our challenge mode, where we fight Chatterbox, the 21-day login stamp, all the missions, including the Frosty Bite Pass, and the shop with a new event title for the standard 2000 event currency, and last but not least, the minigame. AZX Service Time carries on the pixel art style we've become accustomed to for our event minigames, and this time it's a math minigame where you can drag a selection box in order to connect dots that add up to 10 in order to clear the space. Nothing much of note happened on December 4th, except for the introduction of the Terminus Ticket Commemoration event, where commanders can get some Terminus Ticket themed items for their participation. The next day, however, brought the newest season of the Union Raid, where commanders and their unions faced off against Dual Ring, Spread, Stormbringer, Rebuild Fingers, and Material H. And then, because we just love to fight Raptures, we also saw the opening of the first coordinated op fighting Modernia until December 7th. The last thing on Friday that we were given was the Chibi avatar for Diesel's new alt for your profiles. Saturday, December 6th brought a full burst weekend, which was the only thing of note until the last day of the first week, when on the 9th, we were given the winners of the Summer Creators Contest. Please, if you haven't, go and congratulate the winners and see what the NIKKE community is capable of. And speaking of which, the 3rd Anniversary Creators Contest also ends soon, so make sure to get any last-minute entries in before it ends on December 15th. Before I end it for today, I really kind of just want to speak from the heart a little bit. I'm Midwest Weeb, or Mr. Annis NIKKE is also what I go by, and this is hopefully going to be a really big passion project for me. I really want to archive what it is that we go through as a community, from things like all the Twitter updates, community events, meetups, anything like that. I don't just want to say, here's what happened in NIKKE this week, and leave it at that. I want to show off what we all did for NIKKE and what NIKKE did for us this week and for the following weeks. And I really am happy that I got to at least push this video out and at least somewhat start at the beginning of a new year. I had initially planned to include the anniversary, and I have about 80% of the video actually done for the anniversary, but unfortunately it didn't work out that way, and things got a little busy with school in order to do the blank ticket event. So I hope you guys enjoyed that little synopsis at the beginning. And I really want to thank one person in particular, because I feel like I've been lying to him a lot, because today is now Sunday, December 14th, and I'm currently working on the second week of the Terminus ticket event, and that's Dozer. I really appreciate everything that you've been doing, promoting me, helping promote on the streams, so I am really appreciative. I just want to make sure I put that out there, that if for some reason anybody who's watching this isn't following Dozer already, please go do so. He's been a really big help for, you know, helping me put my videos together, even if, you know, he doesn't know it. And yeah, I really just appreciate you guys, and here's the next week.